Cardinals jumped out to a 3-0 lead, but the Royals scored the next 6 runs after that, and were able to close it out. Brenden?
Cardinals got some homers. Royals got a rally, and I just keep marveling at how good Salvador Perez still is at baseball. I mean,
well,
guy's tough.
He's tough out, and he showed that today with a couple of big hits to help the Royals offense forward. We'll talk about our quick reactions to Game 1 before Game 2 tonight. Cardinals had a good start. I mean, Andre Palante pitched fairly well until the 5th inning when it got dicey and the Royals got the timely hits that they've been known for this year from even some unlikely sources, like Garrett Hampson delivering the 2 RBI double to tie the game is one that's very Royals of them to have a player like that all season long doesn't really put together the numbers that you would expect a great MLB hitter to put together, but he comes up in a big moment and gives the Royals 2 runs to tie the game, and then Salvi ends up getting the solo homer after that. But Palante pitched pretty well on, despite all of that, it looked like a pretty decent day just up until that point.
Yeah, the Hampson moment was the moment of the game, and in that 5th inning and as well on the 6th inning home run that he gave up, it was just fastball location that I think got away from him a little bit. A number of the hits in those 2 innings were fastballs that were down the middle. Now, the pitch to Hampson, I believe, was a sinker that was at the bottom of the zone, but it was in the middle of the zone. And guy puts a good swing on it. I do think, I'd have to go back and look at some of these individual plays. I do think that it's worth noting Lars Nootbaar was in center field for the Cardinals today, and I think it's the first time they've done that with him this year. And you figure if ever you're going to be willing to do it, it's a day where Palante is your starter, because in theory he's going to keep the ball on the ground, and your outfield defense is not going to be as big of a priority as it might be on other days where, say, you've got a fly ball pitcher that you want to make sure guys can cover lots of ground. And there were balls hit to both gaps by Royals hitters that I feel like maybe they were able to take an extra base here and there with Nootbaar in center field instead of Michael Ciani. I'd have to go back and look and see that. But really, it was just fastball location for Palante. But the fact that he does get through the 5th, was able to complete the inning, sometimes that's the knockout blow. When the Royals had 3 doubles against him, we've seen at times the Cardinals starters that get into that type of trouble in the 5th inning, they don't get out of the 5th. So he got through the 5th. They run him back out there for the 6th because pitch count was reasonable, and you are in a doubleheader where tonight it's Gordon Graceffo starting, pretty unproven, so you don't know how deep he's going to be able to go. We'll give our predictions for that at 5:05. But it was really not a bad outing by Palante, especially when you keep the context that he is their number 5 starter. If you go 6 1/3, and he did record an out in the 7th because it was a good lefty matchup, he's got the reverse splits, so Oli Marmol ran him out there for one more batter. 6 1/3, 4 runs, that's the kind of game that we have talked about the Cardinals should be able to find a way to win. It's going to be incumbent upon their offense at a certain point to get over the hump. Now, we could be talking about extra innings if the Cardinal bullpen had kept it there, and today they give up a couple of runs, so the late homer by Goldschmidt doesn't end up factoring in. But your number 5 starter gives you a start like that, gets you into the 7th inning and keeps it close. That's really all you can ask for, and unfortunately the Cardinals just got mowed down today by Alec Marsh and Royal Relief. I think it was 15 in a row retired at one point until Pages broke that streak later in the game. Alec Marsh settled in, man. He gave up the couple of home runs, but was able to settle in and have a pretty good outing for KC, which is important because when you're down early, the tendency can often be to kind of mail it in, and he certainly didn't do that. He settled in and was able to keep the Royals in the game. I think we want to credit Palante for keeping the Cardinals there, but Alec Marsh deserves probably even more credit for the way that he battled back for KC because they won the game because of him.
Yeah, and he's their 5th starter, and he's giving you 6 innings and 3 runs a lot. He's giving you a quality start, and so you couldn't have asked for much more from a guy like Alec Marsh in that situation, pitching on the road in day 1 of a doubleheader when you know that you might have to worry about your bullpen a little bit. And the Royals did have to use a few leverage arms today. They used MacArthur for the save, and he ended up getting the save, even though he let up the home run to Goldschmidt, which was actually his first run given up since June 9th. But, that's it's still a really nice way to set up what you could be having for Game 2 with Michael Wacha getting the start from the Royals side of things. So, just the fact that, again, they got those timely hits. Alec Marsh settled down and really gave a good foundation for the Royals to try and come back into that game. was very crucial for them. So, I mean, honestly, that's a really good win for the Royals. Like, to go and get that first game of a doubleheader, and especially when they're coming off a bad week where they almost got swept by the Rockies if it weren't for that offensive explosion they had on Sunday. Like, that's a good one to get if you're KC. I'm sure they feel good about that, even though they're trying to prepare for a second game right now.
Yeah, and based on the way they had played recently, you alluded to that Rockies series, the Rays series before that. The Royals have it tougher because the competition in the AL wildcard chase is stiffer and it's deeper than what the Cardinals are facing in the National League. Because I think right now you have the Braves, Cardinals, Padres all in those wildcard spots. I am sure there will be a team or two that emerges from the rest of that grouping that's all at or below 500 right now. But there's a little bit of a gap there. With the Royals, man, there's not really a gap between whether it's Minnesota or Boston or the Royals that are left out of the mix on a given day. They kind of continue to trade spots in that AL wildcard picture. And then I still maintain that your Astros are coming, Andy. I don't think that we've heard the last of them. So those are like 5 legit teams, and in the NL you might have 3 to 3.5 to 4 legit teams. So for the Royals to be able to stem the tide a little bit, I think matters in a game like today. And look, now they have a chance to kind of take it to the jugular of the Cardinals and take the series. It's only a 2-gamer. It's weird because they're the cross-state rivals and they get to play 2 at each other's place. But the Royals would feel real good to come into Busch and win 2 games today. And I would say that they probably have the pitching advantage going into Game 2, given that it's Michael Wacha, who's a mainstay for them, against Schaeffer, who we just don't know a lot about for the Cardinals. So, yeah, a big win for the Royals, and it could get even bigger if they can keep the pedal down.
875 KTGR, tell us your thoughts on the Royals getting the first win in the I-70 series this afternoon and game one of the split doubleheader, and we'll get Game 2 coming up later on tonight. I will say, yes, the starting pitcher edge probably does go to the Royals. It is good, though, that from the Cardinals' point of view, I suppose, that their top bullpen arms were not spent for Game 1. I mean, they went with Roycroft, who gave them the innings necessary, and of course Palante going 6 1/3, is big for them too. And then Gallegos with a very solid outing himself in the 9th inning to get a 1-2-3 ninth. I know he had some help from Brenden Donovan making a great catch in left field, but I mean,
how about that guy too?
Yeah,
I mean,
he's a great defense, man.
He could win a Gold Glove as a left fielder, I think. I don't know if that's too much to say, but he obviously
played enough
wanted
left field and to be able to be eligible.
Now, my point is, if he just only played left field and he was on a team where they didn't move him around, which I'll look at the game logs. He's mostly been in left this year. I bet he would qualify, but because he moves around, he's always going to be eligible for that utility award. I think he's good enough in left, is my point, that I think he's that caliber of a defender. He's made a number of great catches and seems to read balls really well. Just another reason that anytime we talk about trades, he's never in the conversation for me. I just think he's that good. But yes, to your point, the Cardinal bullpen was able to they use guys that maybe are not their chief relievers, and theoretically you have those guys then available for tonight, and then you do have the off day tomorrow, which is nice.
Yeah, you get that, and then you're also resting guys here and there, like Siani, I guess, will play center field for this one.
I imagine, yeah.
Yeah, and again, it was interesting to see Lars Nootbaar in center, as you mentioned earlier, to have that play out, which, again, was a little bit by necessity because it's a doubleheader. You want to make sure guys aren't spent too much, even defensively, especially for a position like that. But it was interesting.
You could go Carlson, but I think you want to, if you're ever going to try it, it's with Palante on the mound in a doubleheader. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, if you're not willing to do it then, maybe it's never going to happen. So they did, and, I would say maybe not glowing reviews. I think Nootbaar's a fine defender. I just like him better in the corners, and I think the Cardinals do too.
Yeah, that's the best place for him. And we'll see if he's able to improve in that sense. But I don't know. We'll see what happens with Game 2 tonight. And again,
lineup is out, by the way.
Is it
it's
really?
A little bit? Yeah, this is interesting. You wouldn't be able to do it if we played the guessing game. I don't think you'd be able to.
From the Cardinals side?
Let me start with Mason Wynn's not playing Game 2, which is totally reasonable considering he, hot out there, doubleheader. So with that said, who would you guess is the leadoff man for the Cardinals? This part might not be too crazy.
Brenden Donovan.
Brenden Donovan playing left field. Batting second, you're going to get this wrong.
Am I?
Unless MLB.com is lying to me, yes.
Let me get crazy with it and say somebody like Michael Ciani.
Okay. Too crazy.
All right.
They flipped Wilson Contreras into the 2-hole.
Okay. All right.
And now this could be interesting. I do happen to know that I've had Wilson Contreras tell me before he doesn't like batting leadoff. The Cubs did that to him for a while, and he feels like he needs a little bit of time to settle into the game. I don't know if it's applicable to the 2-hole. I think maybe as long as there's one batter ahead of him, it's okay. But I'll be kind of curious to see, how he feels about that. But I'm looking at the Cardinals have not tweeted this lineup out, but it is up here on MLB.com. Maybe we shouldn't spend too much time talking about it if it's wrong. But Contreras 2, and that sets up your left, right, left, is what I was sort of getting to. Donovan left, Contreras right, Burleson third, left, Goldschmidt in the cleanup hole right, Nootbaar left, Arenado right, Gorman left. And then the rest of the guys are lefties, Crawford and Ciani at the bottom.
Yeah.
That's a nice balanced lineup, but I think it's the best way that it works because when Mason Wynn's in there leading off, you can't really who's your lefty that's going to bat cleanup. I don't think Nootbaar really profiles, and I don't think Gorman has shown enough just yet to put him back that high in the order. So this is actually kind of interesting.
Right.
I like this lineup.
It's of course it is lefty heavy, and that's fine. But
that's the team though. That's the St. Louis Cardinals. It's why Katie Woo has been, kind of reporting like if there's anything the Cardinals are going to try to do offensively, it's to add a bat to the mix that hits right-handed. Whether or not they're able to come up with that and have it even make sense to do it, remains to be seen. But that would be the one thing that you could think offensively they could use a little bit more balance because they are lefty heavy, and the righties they do have been guys like Goldy, Arenado that haven't really been performing at a very high level.
Especially
so that's the trouble there.
When they're in the spots that you want them to perform well in. With
they have to be performing.
Like they just
they're not
haven't
doing
been
it.
able to do it. It's just not happening. And I mean, look, Goldschmidt and they both homered today. I mean,
they both
did.
Like, we're ripping them, but they both
we're ripping
today.
them when they both had home runs today. But we got to see more consistency. We have to see it when they have runners in scoring position. Now today they didn't. They had one at bat with runners in scoring position today. Alec Marsh had something to say about that for the Royals with how well he pitched. But I mean, it seems that it's harder to place them in spots. Like, they have to be in the lineup somewhere, but it's harder to know where the best place is to put them, which maybe is a little bit freeing in a sense to where, like, you could maybe play around and say, like, okay, let's try Arenado 6th or 7th or whatever it is. Like, I don't know if he's been 7th this year, but
I think 6 is as low as he's been, and they've not moved Goldy down very far.
But if they were
either.
willing to try it, I wouldn't be too unhappy with it. Just to, I know he needs to be in the lineup because he can always get hot, but just I don't know where to put him in order to have him be in the best spot where he can drive in runs.
What are your thoughts though about Goldy and Arenado and the like moving them down collectively? I think we're all on board with the order that they've both been slotted. It's usually been Goldy first, Arenado down a little bit lower. I would genuinely think about swapping that out. And here's why. When you're talking about the most meaningful at-bats, they're typically coming after the guys that are your best on-base guys, right? When there are runners in scoring position, runners on base. In today's lineup, Donovan, Contreras, Burleson, I think those have been 3 of your best hitters, non-Mason Wynn division, because he's on the bench to start game 2.
Yeah.
So whoever's batting fourth behind that group should be somebody that can drive the runs in. That's going to be a pretty considerably important part of that whole deal. Paul Goldschmidt, with RISP this year, if you had to guess, his overall batting average is 229. What would you guess his average with RISP is this season?
If he's hitting 229 overall with runners in scoring position, 210?
Andy, he's hitting 159 with RISP.
Like, I was I was dinging him a little bit because I know the Cardinals have been bad with runners in scoring position, and he's been a reason why. But that should not make sense for any star hitter in this league. Like, when you have runners in scoring position, it always puts more pressure on the pitcher. It should never be lower than your actual batting average.
Other than just like within like a statistical anomaly, you go, okay, it's a little lower. That's random.
Just this year, it seems to be different.
His average is about 70 points lower with RISP compared to without. Let me ask you this question. How many MLB hitters, when I sort this on MLB.com, I think it's qualified players. So players that have had at least whatever it is, 3.3 ABs per game. how many do you think are hitting lower than Paul Goldschmidt's 159 with RISP in MLB this season? Qualifying hitters.
Oh, man. Like 5, maybe?
There's one.
One?
It's Orlando Arcia, and that's it. So Paul Goldschmidt is
rough year
scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Gosh.
I know. And so then it stands to reason, like, okay, is he the best fit to continue batting in that cleanup spot for the Cardinals? Because as much as I agree he's got to be in the lineup, I would prefer Arenado back up there and Goldy down 6. That would be the change I would make. And it's nice that Goldy, maybe he figured something out. He stayed on a ball, then hit a homer to the opposite field later in today's game in the ninth. But his first 3 at-bats were all strikeouts, 2 of them looking. And in the third at-bat, he had a strikeout swinging. But earlier in the AB, he looked at the best pitch that he was going to see all at-bat. I don't know, he's not processing what's coming. Something is not quite there for Goldy this year, and it comes in fits and starts, but largely it's just not been there. That's just not a good recipe. If you're leaving the best pitch to go by you that you're going to see in the AB, probably that's a guy that I move down a little bit, especially with Arenado starting to heat up. I'd feel more comfortable with Arenado 4, Goldy 6. I'm not 100% sure exactly the rationale to leave it the way that it's been, but that's where they're at again for Game 2. And that's, again, I don't know how you fix it. Jordan Walker, maybe he's the right-hander that comes up and they figure out a way to get some more right-handed production. But where do you play him? If you're willing to play Nootbaar in center, it all works out because you can play Walker or Burleson in right, and then the other can DH, and then everything is magic. I don't think Nootbaar has the defensive acumen to pull that together on a regular basis. It's not going to be as good of a situation for the pitching staff. But I that's the thing I do look at and say, man, Arenado looks like he's staying on a lot more pitches a lot more often right now, and Goldschmidt I just don't think is there at this point. So is that a move that you maybe make? Perhaps, but otherwise they're kind of stuck with what they've got. You're right. They're stuck with these righties that were supposed to be the biggest stars of their team. They both homered today, so you give them their flowers, but Arenado's OPS is just barely over 700. Goldy is around 660. That's been the Cardinals' season. Now, they're still in a playoff position with all of that happening, but if you want to think about getting to the next level, it's those guys more consistently bringing it, and then Goldy specifically bringing it with RISP. It's just been a 159 that's not Paul Goldschmidt.
No.
So they got to figure something out there.
You got to find someone that can be a little bit better in those spots. And again, you have to be a little bit creative about where you might want to put them. It might have to be like a center field type almost, though, right? That's maybe the only spot where you could find
the
a
right-handed bat that they acquire, you mean?
Yeah.
If they're trading?
Yeah,
yes.
I mean,
it'd be a right-handed hitting center fielder who can play good enough defense, but is an upgrade over Ciani offensively. And maybe even an upgrade over Edman offensively, because what you're describing could very well be Tommy Edman. It's interesting to me that there's this conversation floating around that the Cardinals need a right-handed hitting outfielder that can play center.
Sure.
When Edman has long been able to. He's a switch that hits better from the right side.
Yeah, and it's just, I'm so torn, though, when it comes to guys like that who have not played a lick of Major League Baseball this year.
You can't count on it.
It's just, and I understand the value of Tommy Edman when he's playing at his best, but you might just have to have him be just another utility man. I know you already have one with Donovan, but it's
not really, because he's playing left. I mean, they've stuck him in left for the most part.
So Edman might have to be your utility guy off the bench. That is your Swiss Army knife, can fill in the blanks wherever you need it. Things like that.
But at full health, let's do some math. You have a backup catcher. We don't have to debate whether that's Herrera or Pajas. It's one of the two. You have Matt Carpenter. You have Brandon Crawford.
Yeah.
Right now you have Dylan Carlson. So, Edman comes up, Carlson gets traded. Okay, I could still, I could still be on board with seeing the path there. What's the path if you're bringing in a right-handed hitting center fielder? Is it Carpenter or Crawford that there has to be a conversation about? And they like those guys in the clubhouse. I'm telling you, they do.
Yeah.
What would have to happen is like a convenient 15-day IL stint for one of them, where you go up. Stubbed his toe, and then you can kick the can down the road for another 2 weeks. But like, if everybody's healthy, you're kind of.
It's going to have to be Crawford.
But I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be either of them. That's what I'm saying. I don't think the Cardinals are trading for a right-handed hitting center fielder unless there's an injury that happens imminently, where you're able to do some math and go, okay, it works. because otherwise it doesn't work. But they need it. I could agree with you that they need it, but they've boxed themselves in with the way the bench was built. Imagine that. We said it in March, but that's true. I mean, if you didn't have one or the other of Crawford and Matt Carpenter, right-handed hitting center fielder that can slug a little bit and play adequate defense, that's your answer. And then Michael Ciani flips to the bench, and I think has a really nice role off the bench too. And you're a team that suddenly makes sense for the stretch run and for the playoffs with the way that the roster and the bench would be designed. But they have both Carpenter and Crawford, and they haven't done anything offensively egregious recently to say they got to dump them. And that's like a hard thing when you targeted those players for a role and a reason. But if Edmonds back, he can play backup shortstop, which is why maybe Crawford would be.
Yeah.
But he's the clubhouse DJ, Andy. I'm just saying there are some intangibles here that come into play.
God, somebody else going to have to bring that back.
Nobody does it like him. Nobody does it like him.
Can't get rid of the
for the
DJ
record, I don't think he's
season.
I don't think they're going to do anything different. I don't think they're going to end up making a trade for a bat unless they move unless they move Carlson and Herrera maybe to kind of unclog it a little bit. I just don't know if they're going to call it complicated, and they're not going to do it. That's sort of my guess. But Edmund could be the answer, so we'll see.